Shop. So today's project is we are going to be building a deluxe shooting backstop. If you want to know how to make this, stick around. I think you'll like this video. So in today's video, we are going to be upgrading our shooting backstop. In a previous video, which I'll leave a link in above, we made a smaller one out of a Tupperware box. We lined the inside with some stuff called duct seal to help the pellets stick in. Well, we're going to up that game a little bit with this steel one here. So we are going to be using 3 sheets of 3/4 inch, 2 foot wide, 4 foot long plywood. Then we are going to be putting this angled piece of mild steel in here and a carrying bar on top. And then we're going to do something else fun with it at the very end to make it completely waterproof. So I'm going to get this moved out of the way, and then we are going to start working on our backstop. Okay, so the first part of this build is I'm going to go ahead and prep our 3/4 inch thickness sheets of plywood that are 2 foot wide by 4 foot long. Now, you don't have to use any fancy plywood. Obviously, you want to make sure it's straight and square. But the reason we're just going to prep this a little bit, because this is a little bit rough, I would not use pressure treated stuff just because we are going to waterproof this, and pressure treated stuff tends to be a little bit wet, and when it dries, it will warp. So don't get pressure treated stuff. But we're going to prep this, just sand it flat, make sure there's any rough spots so that we can go to the next step. Okay guys, so our first cut is going to be 23 3/4 just to maximize this piece of wood here. So go ahead and mark that out. And now with the other side of the piece of wood, before we cut it, we're going to measure the other way, and that's going to be our sides. Now our sides can be any depth, but we have got about 24 inches to play with. Now it doesn't have to be that. So we are going to do 11 3/4, and that'll give us a little bit of room to kind of mess with our curves. So. All right, so next we are going to go ahead and attach these. Make sure you get the sides lined up correctly. So the 23 3/4 on the width. And if you're not planning on painting this or doing something with it, just make sure that you kind of plan and put the nice looking side on the outside, because we want our inside dimensions to be right at about 22, maybe just a hair over. And when you order your piece of steel, I would not order it until major box, because if you end up adjusting the dimensions a little bit, you want it to be able to fit. So you can use any Titebond wood glue. I would recommend either you're using Titebond III or something for outdoor use. Now our little finishing step that we are going to do actually makes it so you can kind of use whatever glue you want. Work that on right there. I'm going to shoot a little brad nail. Make sure you get that squared up right there. That will kind of hold everything in place.
How good these brads are holding. It's really just to kind of keep everything put. Let's do that one.
Good. So now we're going to go ahead and get our drill with our countersink. And we are going to be sealing this whole project, so you don't necessarily need to use outdoor rated screws. But if you don't want to seal this like we're going to do later, I would go ahead and recommend using stainless steel screws. Hex drive screws. You use obviously whatever you want, but square drive or hex drive work really well and they hold really good. Okay, now let's go ahead and measure our bottom. We've got our sides, everything's glued together. So we need a side piece that is 12.5 deep by 23 3/4 wide. Okay, so same process as before. Okay, so next we are going to set our bandsaw fence up to 1 1/8 inches. So 1 1/8 inches. This does not have to be exact. This is just our lip on the outside, but you're going to make 3 pieces that are exactly the same. So all right, there's 1. 2. So now we're going to take these 3 pieces around to the front side and I'll show you what to do with them. So next we're going to take one of those pieces. Obviously you'll have some little fuzzies all around this. So when we're done, we're going to hit this with sandpaper just to knock down some of this stuff. But we're going to take one of those pieces and we're going to put it right at the bottom and it will be the exact same length because we took it out of that piece that we cut before. Now once again, you do not have to use the Titebond Rapid set. But if you don't like to wait for any kind of glue to dry, this works good and looks like I'm just about out of it. So get that guy placed right on there. Once again, we're going to hit this with our brad nailer just to kind of hold everything in place. Don't get your finger. And I'm wiping up the excess just so I don't have a big mess to clean up. Next, you're going to take your 2 side pieces. You're going to put them flush with the outsides. And before you do that, you're going to actually need to trim them just ever so slightly. So lay them up there and go ahead and make you a mark on the back side. So as you can see, I'm just taking ever so slightly amount off. And we'll do this exactly the same to both of them. Okay, so next we are going to create a slot for something to slide. So this would be either a piece of cardboard, or you could even use a heavy-duty rubber mat. I'll show you the one that I've got that I've used a little bit, and it is a heavy-duty rubber mat from a place called Tractor Supply. It's like a farm equipment store. I'm sure most states have something like that, but there are about, half-inch thick, really, really hard rubber. And so we are going to actually use the width of one of these as a spacer here to create our space here. So like 3/4 of an inch, so you can slide different things in there. So this is our piece of scrap we had left from when we made our bottom and sides, and that is the exact thickness to make our slot. And so we'll use that last little piece of scrap to create our gap when we put on something right here. We have created about a 1/2 inch, so I would probably do something about a 1/2 inch tall. More is not going to be not going to be bad. You don't want to make it too tall, because whatever you're shooting may end up hitting that if you get really close to the sides. So we're actually going to do just a little over. We'll probably do about 3/4, just to give it a little bit more backer. So next, one of these is going to go at the bottom. So we'll just put this on our gap, measure the width at the bottom, and mark that. So this will go at the bottom. But remember, we're going to use our piece of wood here. As our spacer. So this one you will not need to use any screws on. And now our sides. The sides, we'll reference it off the bottom. Make your mark for your length. And we'll go ahead and cut both of those. And I'm not making this perfect because there's a part that we're going to do that covers a lot of this stuff up. Throw your spacer in there. Just so everything is square. All right, guys, let's do a quick recap on what we've done. We finished sanding this, and we built our sides, our bottom, our back. We've put our slot in for our target material. Next, we are going to coat this with a roll-on bed liner. What that's going to do is it's going to give a very durable outer surface, and it's going to be waterproof for the elements. So we're going to put that on, but we're also going to put a handle across the top to carry this, and we are going to put our plate steel on the inside. So let's work on those right now. And we are going to put a little bit of glue on these as well. And then make sure to wipe off your excess. And the last thing that we're going to do is we are going to make sure we add a brad nail just right beside it, one on each side, and that's going to keep this dowel rod from rolling. So just right beside it. So now let's get our piece of sheet steel. So we got our dimensions. The way this is going to fit in there is it goes in there right like that at an angle. Now, because this is regular plate steel, you do have to worry about this rusting. So we actually are going to coat this with the truck bed seal as well. Now you can just spray paint this and just put it in spray painted. That will help protect this from rust as well. All right, guys, so one last thing we're going to do with our plate steel in there with our angles all cut. Remember that last piece of wood that we used for our spacer? We're actually going to use that. We're going to use that to put on here for this steel to rest on. That'll keep it a little bit quieter, and it'll make sure it doesn't bow. I mean, this is 1/8 inch steel, so it probably won't, but then it just kind of seals that gap in right there. So we're going to take this piece of wood, we're just going to cut it in half, and then we're going to tack it on either side just to give something for the steel to rest on. Next part here is we are going to clean our steel off for paint. If you're going to coat this, you definitely want to give this a scrub off to get all the oil and grease off of here from being in the steel yard. Now, I got my steel at just a local place. I Googled just steel cutting, and a local steel shop came up and they cut, and this I think cost me about $35, so not super expensive. All right, so let's take a look and see what comes in this kit. So this is a 1 gallon kit I got at Lowe's. Runs just a little over $100. Got a paintbrush. You've got 2 rollers, which is nice. And it comes with 1 gallon of truck bed seal. Now they recommend 2 coats of this. Now this would be on a truck bed. So you may start with 1 coat, just see the thickness and the coverage, and then add a 2nd coat as needed. But this should last you a long time. You can get this in quart cans. It just comes with 1 quart can. And I believe it's $25, $30. So you're saving money if you buy a bigger can. You plan on coating anything else with it. I would recommend getting the larger one. I've never used this stuff, so I don't know what the kind of the shelf life is. I don't know if I have to, once I open it, it's all going to dry out, then it's going to be totally ruined. So we'll see. It may have been better for the quart can. I don't know. But we are going to coat this entire shooting thing inside and out in this bed liner, kind of waterproof it. So let's get started on that. All right, so here am I getting started. One thing you got to do is stir this really well because everything settles out. Another thing is it is extremely strong smelling, so if you have to do this in your garage, make sure the garage door is open because it's terrible smelling. Also, it doesn't coat as heavy as I thought it would on the first coat, so you will have to probably apply 2 coats. Now, part of this is just because maybe I'm applying it to wood and it doesn't stick as good to wood, but I had to apply 2 coats. So here you can see it's going on much nicer now. This is the 2nd coat. They say about 4 hours maybe to like kind of get tacky. Of course, this takes a couple days to dry like completely solid. You can also see in here I got smart and put a vapor mask on after a couple minutes of breathing this stuff. It definitely does not smell good. So wear a mask and put 2 coats on. All right, guys, we are done with this build, and I am really happy with the way this turned out. I actually made 2 of them. I made another one off camera for myself. This is going to be a present for my father because he enjoys shooting as well. Now, we coated this with the bed liner, which makes it completely waterproof. It makes it so much more durable and last forever. Now, this part here, I chose to leave that just painted. Makes it a little bit lighter and less heavy. It's still a heavy unit, but we wanted it really strong and durable. We didn't want our pellets or whatever you're going to be shooting in it to possibly go through. I know this is a little bit longer build and a little bit more expensive build, but this is something that is going to last a lot longer than just that box that I made before. Now, depending on what caliber you're using, you could change this up for thicker metal. It's just going to make this unit a lot heavier. Now, the slot here, you can put any type of material for your targets to attach to. You can use some double-sided cardboard. You can use a rubber mat that I would get at Tractor Supply store, and we size this accordingly. Now, if you don't want to do that, when you go and build this, you can adjust the slot to any type of material that you end up wanting to use. But this can be left outside. You don't have to worry about it just falling apart in the elements. But if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, guys, and you appreciate this video, be sure to give that a thumbs up. And until next time, thanks again.